Dear friends, Sir Handel has been helping on the Italian railway at Toyen in Wales. You could write a book about it, he said when I went to see him. Sir Handel was conceited before he went. Whatever would happen, I thought, if he had a book all to himself. But some of his adventures were too good to waste, so I mixed them with stories about the other engines. That ought to keep everyone happy. The author. One morning at the narrow gauge shed, Sir Tollem had arrived with some very important news.
Morning, sir. Is there something wrong?
I'm afraid so, Peter Sam. Except it's about the other railway.
The little engines were surprised to hear this, and he pulled out a letter.
Scullery's twin, Tara Klin, is feeling ill, and the other railway needs one of you to take his place until he gets better.
The engines blew their whistles and begged him to pick one of them. He held his ears and immediately silenced them.
Whoa, not all at once. I only need one engine to go, and I chose Sir Handel to do it.
Sir Handel was very pleased to hear that and felt like his boiler was going to burst with excitement.
Oh, thank you, sir. I would love to go. When will I leave?
You will leave when it gets mended from the steamworks. There isn't anyone who is available to take your job until you come back. So I told them to wait until you are able to go. Are you okay with that?
Sir Handel said yes, and couldn't wait to go somewhere new. When he was pulling his passengers, he couldn't help but look at the clouds and think about what it'll be like when he works there.
I hope Grandpa gets better really soon. I just need to get there right away.
Patience, Sir Handel. In case you forgot, you had some repairs that took a really long time too. Besides, there's plenty of work here that needs to be done.
But I'm afraid to say that it took him much longer than he thought it would for Duke to get fixed. A week has passed and still no sign of Duke, but Sir Handel has bigger problems to deal with. There were more passengers than usual, so much that Sir Handel had to pick up a third coach just so they could all fit in the train. When he made it to the next station, Gordon was there waiting for him. Sir Handel thought it'd be best to tell him about the big news while waiting for his journey to see Henry.
I've been asked to help take an engine's place at the Tallyquin Railway till the engine comes back. But I can't do that till Grandpa gets better from the steamworks, so he can do my jobs.
Well, I'm glad that you're not going anywhere till he gets better. It's important that someone takes your place to get the job done for you. Otherwise, you'd have to make up for the lost time from who knows how long you'd be gone, and it also might cause chaos as well. I can't imagine going to another railway to visit and come back to see that nobody has taken care of my express train, and to see that it has caused trouble.
I guess you make a really good point about that. I'm just so exhilarated to go there, and it feels like forever to get there right now.
Don't worry. I'm sure Duke will get better before you know it, so you can get to the other railway. Well, see you soon. After Gordon left the station, Sir Handel was thinking about what he said and didn't know what trouble was about to happen. As the guard was checking to see if all the doors were closed, Sir Handel was getting impatient.
I need to get to Henry. He'll probably wonder where I'm at.
But before he could, the guard was finally ready and blew his whistle. But when he tried to get in, there wasn't any room for him from all the passengers in the coach. And when there was finally some room for him, it was too late. Sir Handel left the guard at the platform, but he didn't know. He tried to shout at him to come back, but he was too far to hear. But thankfully, a passenger saw the whole thing and pulled the emergency brakes, and they came to a stop.
Oh, great. Now what?
His driver peeked out and saw the problem.
It looks like the guard wasn't able to get in on time, and we nearly left him at the station.
Sir Handel was shocked and felt embarrassed. Now he was sure Henry was going to get impatient on waiting. When the guard climbed in the third coach, they were off again. By the time they made it to the next station, Henry was still there waiting for him and his passengers.
Phew, I'm glad we made it.
Just then, the guard walked up to him.
I'm sorry about what happened back there. I just didn't want to be late and make the passengers miss their next train.
That's alright, Sir Handel. At least someone was able to make you stop so I can climb in. But just to let you know, sensible engines know that patience is a virtue.
Those words were stuck in Sir Handel's mind for a really long time. And always remember to be patient for anything, no matter what important schedule he's on. A few days have passed and Duke was finally fixed. Sir Handel was very pleased. Now he can go to the Thailand Railway. So he said his goodbyes to all his friends and then puffed away with glee. But there wasn't time to miss him while he was gone. The other engines were very busy doing their jobs. The other day, a big windstorm blew in and knocked down trees and branches. Rusty would have a few empty trucks to get the branches in, and when they get full, he takes them away and has to wait for the next evening to do it again when the engines are done. But the problem with that is it takes too long to do it, since there were so many of them on the narrow gauge railway. One day, Peter Sam was doing a passenger run when all of a sudden there was a big tree on the line, so he came to a stop and let his crew look at the problem.
I'm afraid we can't go through all that. We'll just have to find another way.
Pah! It's just a pile of tree branches. I'm sure I'm strong enough to take them down one by one.
His driver didn't bother arguing with him and just let him do what he wanted to do. So Peter Sam puffed right in front of the branches and tried to push them as hard as he could. Some of them went to the side as he expected, but the more he did it, the more difficult it was becoming. The branches became more prickly and got heavier. Peter Sam tried to continue, but it was no use and came to a complete stop.
I can't do it any more. They're way more painful and heavier than I thought. Let's go back and do it your way.
I'm afraid we can't.
Why the heck not?
Because some of those branches went under your valve, causing damage. So we'll just have to get them out of you and the track.
Oh, botheration! What a silly engine I am! If only I wasn't jumping into conclusions and thought twice about this!
While Peter Sam was feeling embarrassed, his fireman was putting on gloves so he doesn't get splinters, and his driver pulled out his knife and started cutting. The passengers saw what they were doing, and some of them climbed out and pulled out their knives as well to help. They cut at the branches one by one, but it took longer than they thought it would to finish. By the time they finished, it was late afternoon. Steam was able to come out, and nothing badly damaged Peter Sam. So he was okay to move and finish his run.
Oh man, what are the others going to say about this?
He soon found out later that night. The engines teased him and laughed about it too.
Maybe when the windstorm arrives and blows trees and branches onto the rails, you should wear a snowplow so you don't damage your buffers again.
Alright, that's enough teasing for one night. Don't worry, Peter Sam. It's still better than the time your funnel got badly damaged and fell off.
I still don't understand about this. Why would he get into the trouble of going through little branches and end up being in a prickly moment?
Duncan!
Peter Sam's cheeks went red and didn't say anything. Now he knows that he better think twice before actually doing something. Or else he'll get himself into trouble once more and would probably get into even more trouble. Every summer on Soldor, there'll be a party of scouts in the forest doing whatever a scout should do. They are always busy, but never forgets to wave at an engine passing by. Duncan didn't get why they always spend their summer in the forest, so his driver explained it to him.
They've come to their annual camp. It's like a holiday for them if they have nothing to do. They would always make campfires or explore nature or tell each other scary stories. You know, just for fun and help around.
That's how they spend their summer vacation? Ha! What a joke! I don't see the point of that.
Well, for this year, under Sir Topham Hatt's permission, they'll help make that dam better. So we won't have to deal with it being wet and frosty whenever the cold weather arrives.
Duncan was very pleased to hear that. He remembered stopping right in the middle of the dam and Skarloey had to drag him out of there. Except there weren't any fence lines in case someone had to climb down the engine or the coaches. He couldn't wait to see what it'll look like when the scouts finish it. One day, the summer heat was so hot that no one could even go to the relaxing beach. The scouts were very hot and sweaty, but at least they were able to continue their work. When Duncan passed by, the scouts waved at him. He thought they were waving at him, so he blew his whistle. But then he heard them shouting for him. He wasn't sure what they were calling him for. Then he looked ahead of him and saw the scout leader standing on the tracks waving a red flag. So he came to a stop to see what was the matter with them. What seemed to be the problem, kid?
As you know, today is very hot and we're all exhausted. But we don't have anything to drink to keep us refreshed. Can you find some liquid for us like soda or water for us, please?
Duncan knew that he had to do another run with his coaches after the one he's doing. But if he makes it quick, he can come back with what they need and get back to the coaches lickety-split. Sure I can. We'll see what we can find. And he continued his journey to the station. He's not a fan of passengers, but he cares about the scouts since they're doing something for the engines. When he got to the station, his driver walked in to find any liquid the scouts could have, but came out disappointed. What's the matter, driver?
The refreshment aisles are completely empty. Everyone is so hot today that we're thinking the same thing. What are we going to do now?
Duncan wasn't sure, but then he got thirsty as well. Oof, you're right. It is very hot today. I think I need a drink as... I just got an idea!
Really? What is it?
Well, why not go to the station that's by the lake? I'm sure there's some over there.
Duncan, that's genius. We'll go over there real quick and grab what we can and then go to the scouts. And come back here before it's time to do the next run. Let's get going.
So Duncan and his crew immediately went to the lake to see if there's anything at all. Thankfully, there was. Soda cans and water bottles that his driver knew the scouts would love to have. So he bought as many as he could and they puffed back to the forest. The scouts stopped what they were doing. They can't even move another muscle or else they'll pass out. Then they heard a familiar whistle. They were very happy to see Duncan and his crew with a big box of refreshments for them. They immediately got up to their feet and ran up to them. They cheered and thanked the driver.
Oh, don't thank me. Thank Duncan. Without his idea, you wouldn't have had these to get you kids cooled off.
So they turned to Duncan and thanked him instead. You're very welcome, kids. Now don't let the sun get the best of you again for the rest of the day. Otherwise, that fence line won't be complete till winter time.
Don't worry, we'll make sure that these will help us and they won't drink all of it in under 1 hour. But thank you again very much for your help. We would have been spreading so much to the point that we melted into multiple ponds.
Everyone laughed, and Duncan had to go back to his coaches. So they said their goodbyes, and he puffed away. Most of the time, he's just a total grump who has nothing to do but complain about anything. But today was one of those days where he feels very happy and feels very useful. Now he knows that scouts aren't like passengers, and he has someone to say hello to. Other than the engines, of course. A few days have passed, and the engines were in the sheds after an exhausting day. They were going to rest when all of a sudden, they heard a familiar whistle. They looked at what was in front of them, and they couldn't believe their eyes. It was Sir Handel, backing up towards the sheds with a big smile on his face.
Hello everyone. How were things while I was gone?
The engine stayed silent and weren't sure what to say because his return was so out of nowhere. It wasn't until Duke said something. It's great to see you again, Falcon. How was going to the Italian railway?
Oh, it's been wonderful. There's this one thing I want to talk to you about while I was up there, when we have the time.
Well, we're all done working for the day, and it's only 6 in the evening, so I'm sure we have plenty of time to hear your true story, so tell us, what happened up here?
Well, a special train was needing to be pulled. My crew didn't say who was going to be on the train. All they said was that the train was for a prince and princess.
What was it like pulling it, though?
Actually, I didn't pull it. I was there to be a backup engine in case something happened. But I did meet someone special. If I remember correctly, his name was Wilbert Audrey.
Wilbert Audrey? I know that guy. He's the one who's been writing books about us. I met him after I was rescued from that old shed.
Then I guess that explains a lot about what everyone's been talking about, the books that made the island more popular. Anyway, I was able to pull a wedding train one time, except it was raining that day, so I was completely soaked. The next morning, I had to bring those coaches back very early so they could be used again by another engine.
You think the rain was bad enough? I made an idiotic move to think I can go through a pile of branches, and they got stuck under me.
Oh, well, let me tell you about what happened a week ago before it was time for me to come back to Sodor. It was a wet day on the railway. It rained like crazy overnight, and I didn't want to come out, but I had no choice but to take another train to pull. So I took a deep breath and puffed out of the sheds. Thankfully, the train wasn't so heavy and kind of felt empty. Everything was running nicely until we were really close to the station. I was going through a tight curve and the rails were wet, so I wasn't able to slow down right away wherever I needed to. Before I realized it, there was a tree right around the curve, and I didn't see it until it was too late. I would say that nobody got hurt, but it was the opposite this time. One of the branches actually poked me right in the eye, and let me tell you, it hurted like someone poked me in the behind with a pitchfork. A crane had to get the tree out of the way, and another engine had to take the train. I went back to the sheds, and my crew took a look at my eye. It wasn't completely damaged, just pure red. They knew that I shouldn't look through the painful eye for a few days, so they put an eye patch on me and some bandages around it as well. I knew I looked very silly. The other engines couldn't help but laugh at me and said that I looked like a pirate. But just a few days ago, my eye was completely healed and I didn't need to wear that stupid patch anymore.
So, did they ruin everything for the rest of your journey on the railway?
Oh no, I continued having a blast up while it lasted up till it was time for me to go. I don't know about you, but that was the best trip I've ever had, and I hope I can do it again in the future.
The engines were happy for Sir Handel about his trip and heard about his adventures on the railway. Skarloey had a question, though, and asked him about it.
While you're there, do you get the chance to see my long-lost twin, Tallylin?
I sure did. Remember when I said that another engine took the train after the tree event? That was him. And he was one of the other engines who was at the sheds as well.
Skarloey was very happy to hear that, and the engines all agreed that Sir Handel was the credit to the narrow gauge railway by going to the Italian railway.